Well, it is such a pleasure to have all of you here. I have been working with you guys online, on GG for quite a while, so it's amazing to be able to sit here IRL and chat a bit about what we did. So the reason I invited the four of you is because you were instrumental in the domains for GG24, which we'll get into in a moment as well. So let's first start off with a quick round of intros. Just introduce yourself, and then we can kick off.
All right, I feel like I'm going to start because I've got the mic here. And hello, nice to be here. My name is Monty. I have a background in environmentalism, but I came into the crypto space in about 2021 when this term refi, regenerative finance, was born. And there was a big explosion in this space. And I started an organization called RefiDAO, a network of local communities across the globe who are trying to bridge some of the tech that we're building in this Web3 space into local communities for regenerative outcomes. And since then, it's been a hell of a journey. I've been very involved in Gitcoin over the years. As a grantee, we were funded by Gitcoin and then actually ended up running rounds to fund our network of local communities across the globe and just have continued to build on that work. I teamed up with Luuk and we started Celo Public Goods in the Celo ecosystem and most recently have started the Localism Fund, which has been a part of this most recent evolution of Gitcoin, which I'm excited to talk about on this panel. Great to be here.
Nice. I'm Paul. I'm the founder of Gardens V2. I've been in the public goods space in crypto for 5 years now. That's kind of the reason that I'm here. And the first kind of organization that I stumbled into was OneHive, and that kind of became the first economic protocol that I saw that I was like, this is really interesting and this has potential to change the world. And the mechanism that they used is conviction voting. And so Gardens became the platform that implemented this conviction voting kind of as well as you can possibly implement it, or at least that's what we try to do. Working on Gardens full-time and connected in all of the public goods funding space of crypto at this point.
Cool, Jim. I'm Luuk. I'm the founder of EcoLabs, a for-purpose venture studio. Been in the space now for almost a decade. Been moving at the intersection of impact and Web3 since the very beginning. Got very involved in DAO Stack, which was one of the early DAO frameworks, and was right away convinced that on-chain capital allocation is the way to supercharge movements around the world. Been an early user, contributor, voter, everything at Gitcoin now. I think also since even maybe GG2 or 3, like very, very early. And I've always been impressed by the progress and constant innovation that Gitcoin is bringing. So when we got the chance to get more involved and really take the driver's seat for our own domain and our own capacity, I think that was a big opportunity that we jumped on right away. We started Ethereum for the World, a movement to accelerate sustainable development goal-aligned innovation on Ethereum on the backdrop of it. And so far that has been going really, really well. So happy to speak more about that in a bit.
Thanks, Luuk. Hey, everyone. I'm John from the PSC team in the Foundation. I've been in PSC for about 3 years doing some account abstraction stuff, then working at ZK Email, and then recently at Macy. Macy is a private voting protocol that focuses on privacy and anti-collusion properties. And we helped run the privacy round for GG24. Recently, PSC has traditionally been like an applied cryptography R&D team, but we've pivoted to go all in on privacy. As you guys may have seen, there's a lot of meta and narrative around privacy now. So really excited to see how the privacy space is developing, and was really happy to run the privacy round for GG24.
Amazing. I just want to give you guys another huge shout out, especially you, Luuk and Monty. The amount of work you did in GG24 was just incredible. It was really amazing to see, and this is exactly the vision that we had, that it's not just Gitcoin doing the work, it's actually, we're bringing the community along with us. The coalition funding, everything was just really, really great to see. So what we're going to be talking about a little bit today is how we found the problems. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about the sense-making process and then how those problems turned into domains, the execution and some early results, as well as the coalition model that we were talking about, and then a little bit about looking ahead. It definitely was a very interesting round from my perspective. I have been, like I mentioned, I've been involved with many GG rounds. This one was a fairly big shift. It did come with its kinks, but I think there were so many lessons and learnings. And I've said this so many times, it's one of my favorite parts of what I do is getting all those lessons together, doing a retrospective and seeing how we can, move forward into the future. So why don't we start at the beginning, the sense making? From our side, we did about 45 days of interviews. So instead of in the past, we kind of as the Gitcoin team used to decide, okay, this is what we're funding in each round, and this is how much funding we're putting towards each round, which would go through governance. But in GG24, it was the first time that we actually said, hey, we're not going to make this decision. We want to solve Ethereum's biggest problems with this round. That was the theme. But we're not equipped on our own to actually go out and, identify what those problems are. So we did quite an extensive sense-making period, and I would love to hear from all of you. I think we extended it a few times because we realized it's quite an intensive, it's an intensive exercise. So yeah, I'm also wanting to treat this panel like an open conversation. So if anyone wants to jump in at any stage, fight for the mic, we can just have an open conversation about it. But yeah, curious from your perspective, through the sense making and the interviews, how did you find the process? Do you think there's anything that you learned or that was surprising in that process for yourself?
So there's the metaphor that I've been using is that I feel like we demolished a 23-story building at the beginning of this round, and then we reconstructed a 24-story building from scratch. And that's kind of been like the warning that I've been giving people in our round when I talk about like why things are delayed and like why we're having to kind of piece this together. But it's been, I think, like an unbelievable opportunity to take what we've learned from all of these previous rounds and also what we've learned from outside of Gitcoin and say like, yeah, at this point, we're not guessing anymore. We're not experimenting. Like we know how to invest in this stuff, and we can set a structure for a round that we can be really confident is going to work. So I just want to like express it was chaotic feeling and stressful at times, but it felt really needed, and I'm really impressed, especially also with Monty and Luuk at putting together the organization behind this.
But Paul, you mentioned the word invest, and that word makes my heart beat. I'm super happy. I think when we talk about capital allocation, right, investment is such a key term. We're putting resources somewhere with the hopes of getting more resources. And I think that is something that we've struggled with as this industry for a very long time, is it being a one-way street. We give and we don't always see that value coming back to the middle. So to me, the sense-making exercise was really beautiful because we were creating containers which then allowed us to get capital allocated to it. And I think by starting from a point where I think we had over 25 different sense-making reports, or definitely a lot.
Yeah.
I think one of the beautiful exercises I see is that there's overlap, right? Often problems and opportunities are not singular, like they're interconnected. And I think by starting from the ground up and really structuring everything independently and only then matching based on capacity, I think that was a really, really good exercise that I think allows you to provide impact where it matters without it being too kind of confusing or too all in one place. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the sense making. I think it was really good. I didn't experience it that stressful, I would say. I think I'm actually really impressed how we managed to do so much in such a short time. So yeah, I think it was a really good exercise.
Yeah, I think. Oh my God, that was loud. Okay. Yeah, I think the sense-making process really kind of embodied the Gitcoin 2.0 to 3.0 shift, because it was like, instead of running a centralized program where Gitcoin or small core team is figuring out like, these are the rounds we should fund, this is how we do it. It's like inviting many experts. There's so many experts in this space, and inviting them all to have a take and have a like identify a problem, identify an opportunity, and kind of bringing in that community process. And that's something I'm excited about as well, of forming these like domains of expertise. And that's why I think this dedicated domain allocation comes in. And like, how do we identify, almost in a peer-to-peer way, like who are the experts in different specific niches? There's so many niche domains in this space. And so I think that's what we started to do with the sense making. And then it's a question, okay, well, now we understand the problem opportunity space. Then there's a different question of, okay, how can we raise the funding? How do we have a talented operator team and all of that kind of side of it, and kind of matching that up with the sense making. So yeah, I think it's been a really interesting process of piecing those different pieces together. It's like, okay, sense making is one thing, and then it's like, how do we run an actual round with all the things that requires? So yeah, I think there's some really interesting mechanisms and structures that are emerging to kind of, that we've learned a lot from this round that we'll take forward into 2026. So kind of excited to jam on that future.
Yeah, and I think the comment I'd add, so personally, this is my first foray into a Gitcoin funding round. Really happy with how things came out in the end with the privacy round and what looked like the other rounds as well. From our perspective, it was a little bit chaotic in terms of like, there was some last minute, like the privacy round was added last minute. And with the help of like Luuk and others, we were able to like get it in. And I think despite everything coming together and things being a little bit chaotic, I feel that we've laid some very good foundations with this like experimentation phase for the next Gitcoin Grants round in this sort of new era where we can sort of take these rounds, maybe the privacy round, maybe your rounds, and organize much further in advance and like take this kind of coalitional funding and coalitional model much further next time round.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I also found it really interesting because, as you mentioned, Luuk, I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head how many sense-making reports we got on the forum, but it was a lot. And what we realized is that through that, there were a lot of themes that overlapped with one another. And what I really, it was really fascinating and amazing to see that a lot of teams then teamed up and said, hey, actually, your report and my report are similar, so let's team up and let's run this domain together. So I think there were about 8 themes that then emerged, and that turned into 5 domains. So that was it was a lot of work, but it was a really good first iteration of this model, I think. And some results was we deployed $1.8 million. 54% of that was co-funding, which was very, very impressive. It's, you know, that was the most exciting thing for me, is to see how many teams in the ecosystem actually showed up and were excited to co-fund GG24 with us. And I'd be curious from your perspective, because I have thoughts on this. Luuk, you were very deeply involved in that coalition model and the co-funding and, you know, getting funders in. I'd love for you to chat about that a little bit, and from your perspective, how that works and how maybe we could improve in the future.
Yeah, so I think coalitional funding, back in another Web3 Live, I was a co-founder of PrimeDAO. We tried to create a framework for DAO to DAO coordination. Our whole thesis was together we win, divided we lose. It's very simple. It's even in traditional world, like all the banks own a piece of each other. Like it's just a web of influence. But I think especially in the past 3 years, there wasn't that much coalitional funding happening in the space. Everybody was just hyper-focused on their own thing and their own structures. And slowly we saw more collaborative networks emerge. I think also the transformation of the EF over the past maybe 18 months is a big part of that, right? They set a part of the culture and they're way more open now to co-create and co-fund. And I think it's really exciting. So I think that's maybe the one, is I think coalitional funding is the way to go, but it's also something where we're just seeing a positive trend, that it's more accepted. I think part of it comes from the reality that most projects haven't found a way to like infinite growth yet, and their treasuries are slowly shrinking, which forces you to be more mindful about resources, and that forces you to collaborate more. So one of the exercises I think in this whole thing was understanding what each of the stakeholders is looking for. And I think that's really where the Sensemaking and domains really help, because it's not a one-size-fits-all, donate money to Gitcoin and you're funding 100 things that maybe you only care about 20. We now allowed people to specifically say, hey, I care about this domain. Like, for example, for targeted development and adoption, we had Ma-Earth coming in, supporting the entire domain. But then there's also groups that are like, oh, I like targeted development and adoption, but I really care about localism. Cool, and now you have the opportunity to fund us at the highest level, at like entire Gitcoin, fund a domain on a domain level, or even fund a round on a program level. And I think that diversity just creates a really strong offering where each element has its own kind of set of values and outcomes. And I think that really helped. And I would say most reactions were positive. I think the biggest wins that we can make in the future are one, deals. The larger the deals, oftentimes the longer it takes. I think there were a lot of co-founders that would have liked to do something, but they didn't have the time to really review, commit, improve, do all of that. I think the second thing is, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, is going for higher leverage plays. I think we've been relatively safe for the past, as Gitcoin, I would even say, where the maximum amount that someone can earn through a program is maybe 20K, sometimes 30K. It's maybe once, 2, 3 times a year, but it's not life-changing commitment to a life-changing project that can change your world. And I think that is something where I feel once we really know how to do it well, I would love to see rounds that are 10 or 100 times larger than what we're doing right now, and stretch maybe over 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe even 5 years, because that's the type of capital allocation that I think will really change the world and shape Ethereum.
Yeah, I think that it was one of the things that I found really interesting from the OSS point of view, because I've obviously been very involved in the OSS rounds, because that's, what Gitcoin was first built on. And one of the things that came out of our Sensemaking this round was that dApps and apps was not a priority in the space. So that's been a very big round of ours in the past, the dApps and apps round. And that was one of the things it was difficult because some of the builders could not apply, but it's also one of those shifts that we are making. We are being more intentional. We are being more specific about what we're funding. And I do think that is a strong signal as well. Exactly what you mentioned now as well. It's something that I've been thinking about for a long time. If we become more intentional into the categories, it's going to be a lot easier for others in the space, especially funders, to plug into that. And hopefully also for builders to actually know where they fit and where they can come get funding. Hopefully I've always still had the vision of that. We not only give funding, but we give support and the community, which Gitcoin has always been. It's always been about, come for the funding, stick around for the community. So the shift that we're making now, I'm hoping that the future of that will also kind of flow into everything that we're doing. But yeah, we have a few more minutes. Is there anything else that any of you want to add about your domain, about the round, even looking kind of into the future, maybe some of the feedback that you got from within your domains?
Okay, so yeah, for our domain, we kind of snowballed a bit. Initially we'd formed this targeted development and adoption domain, centered around Ethereum's biggest problems, like how do we achieve meaningful mass adoption of Ethereum, and that can take many different forms. And for us, what we were really excited about was like localism, like how do we empower local community networks to actually implement and benefit from Ethereum tools to solve local problems. And we were initially like, okay, we can just start around, we'll maybe fund 3 to 5 pilots, but inevitably like the things snowballed, and we actually ended up starting a whole fund. We grew a team and actually ended up running like quite an extensive round. So I think the good thing of that was I think the Localism Fund is awesome, and I think what we've achieved is amazing. The kind of challenge with that was like, it was a lot. Like, it was a lot of work, and you're having to sort of pre-estimate a lot, with all these rounds. You're constantly predicting into the future, like, how many applications do I think I'm going to get? How how large is the matching funds have we got? Like all of these estimations you're making about the mechanism. And then we ended up getting 30 plus applications of local communities across the globe. And we have a limited pool. And so it's like, okay, we have to make some really tough decisions here and like reject people that we really want to fund. And then also we started this thing called the Trust Graph, where we wanted to start these kind of domains of expertise. And so, like I mentioned, how do we, in a peer-to-peer way, assess like who's an expert in what things, and like, do that in a kind of web of trust type way. And so we launched this new tool in time for the GG, which was also like an aggressive timeline. But it was really cool, and it uses this like a kind of page rank algorithm that Google developed for like assessing which websites are trustworthy to put up the ranking, but doing that on peer-to-peer attestation. So I know Paul, I'll be like, I attest that he's a wicked expert in localism, but I may not know, Luke or someone else, but if he attests to him, then I can by extension trust his expertise. And so we formed this network, ended up getting like 80 applications, and then had this process of like peer-to-peer to assess who are the validated experts. But that in itself, the more people you bring in to a thing, the more opinions, the more kind of structure there needs to be. So I think, we just learned a lot operationally in terms of like the processes to manage these very complex multi-stakeholder kind of dynamics. And I think bringing that forward, there's so many ways that we can improve. And so we've kind of been brainstorming a lot on that. One other thing I'd say on that also is around the co-funding element, which was quite cool. So we had like a lot of co-funders at the domain level. And then with Localism Fund, we were like trying to empower local communities to also raise co-funding. So they could go out and find local partners, local institutions, even partner with local governments, raise funding from there with the knowledge that we have funds up here to match them. And so it's kind of like win-win dynamic. Like the actual funding we have here is empowering them to go out and make new partnerships, develop these capacities. And that also hasn't been, as smooth as it could have been. Like there's ways we can improve that, make that easier for the communities to do that. Lots of challenges there, but ultimately I think it's a really powerful model. And we've got 12 great projects that we've now funded where they've, raised awesome funding and are going to now deliver their rounds. So we're going through another cycle through the layers. Now we're all the way down to the local. So it's been pretty cool to see that. But yeah, that's been my experience.
Yeah, I can share some learnings from our round. We're the public goods tooling and development round, part of the greater kind of public goods focused round. So we are not public goods as a whole, and the reason that we are not is because there are too many public goods, and if we tried to invest in all of the public goods, we would be spending hundreds of trillions of dollars. And so the way that we focused it is that we are the public goods meta. We are investing in the infrastructure in Ethereum that makes public goods sustainable. And the way that we categorize that is capital allocation, capital formation, decision-making, reputation and identity, and impact measurement. And I would say one of the surprises that came out of this is we had a significant portion of applications from climate-based public goods. And I think this is probably a remnant of Gitcoin has had previous very climate-focused rounds. So a lot of the people that are engaged in this community are climate-focused. And like these were also some of the best applications that we had. So I would say that was like an unexpected thing. Is like, I guess we're also like climate funding infrastructure. So that was cool to see. I think probably going forward, I think one thing that I know our round it needs to get better at, and I think probably all the rounds need to get better at, is identifying teams and projects outside of the scope of our existing communities that we understand to be really valuable, and essentially selling them on why they should take money from us, but also like become part of this greater movement to become this interconnected network of projects in the Ethereum ecosystem that are all supporting each other in some way or another. So yeah, I think that would be my takeaway from this round going into next round. It's been a lot of fun though.
Yeah, and to kind of go off your comment, Luke, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the privacy round would probably be the good. We got 93 projects in the round. We got some really good projects. We were lucky enough to get the Tor projects. We were able to get like a non-Web3 established privacy project in the round. Hopefully that's a sign of more to come. That was thanks to the team Web3 Privacy now and their relationships. So having these relationships outside of Web3 was really beneficial there because we could pull them into our kind of orbit with the funding round. The bad was probably we didn't get enough funding. In an ideal scenario, I think we got like 35 ETH in the funding pool. We'd have loved to get more and give more money to projects. And the ugly would probably be like the privacy round was a little bit last minute, like gave us less time to kind of campaign for projects, gave us less time to get funding. And then kind of general quick comments would be, I think a really big learning for next time is getting more organized with funding and finding projects like privacy projects like big L2s, big projects with big treasuries to allocate funds to these pools. But also measuring success. I think we spread the net quite widely. And I think we still have some question marks over like what is measuring success. And I think that those kind of metrics are really important for funders. Like, okay, why would I invest in your round and give you all this money? And like, what's the tangible impact going to be for my project? So getting more funding, getting more organized, and then finding ways to measure our impact, I think would be really good improvements for next time.
Awesome. So we ran the Solution Development Grants, or the SDG round. And what we focused on was accelerating existing teams to build open source features that allow them to significantly increase their existing impact or existing revenue. Really with this idea that sometimes you're just one or two features away from having a great product that helps a lot of people. And we wanted to fund that. The good thing is we got a lot of good applications. I think we received 50 applications. I would almost say that all of them were good and were within scope. That's also the bad part. We were overwhelmed with how good they were. So in the end, we actually ended up allocating more capital. I ended up putting some of my own money in just to see how... I didn't want to say no to such great projects. And maybe a really good learning that we did, which was at the very start of the round, people were able to request up to 25K in funding. But when they applied, we already did some pre-scoring just based on what they wrote out. And we made a suggested range. Because we realized that if you ask someone, do you want 1 or 100? They'll say, I want 100. But the reality is everybody requests 100, then we can only give it twice or something like that. So we did that, and I think we ultimately allowed 22 teams to progress. We gave them a matching range. 2 projects came back and say, hey, we think we can do way more if we get more. And we were like, okay, great, go for it. Like, we're not saying that you have to stick within this, but it's just a recommendation. But the nice thing is that then out of that, we were able to allow, I think, 19 out of 22 projects to actually get the funding that was right for them. So I do feel that pre-Sensemaking and setting the expectations a bit earlier helped the program and the applicants kind of get more aligned. And I think the ugly part is that we need way more, we need way more of this, right? Within a couple of weeks, we had 50 good applications. Imagine if the pot was bigger, if we had made more noise. I'm pretty sure there's thousands of projects that would want to benefit from this. So I think the ugly is, we're still, and we need to be like this.
Well, I think that's a good problem to have. Oh, too many good projects in the round. But no, I just want to tell you all, thank you so much again for the amazing work that you did in GG24. This was exactly, the vision that we had was it's not just about us, the core Gitcoin team doing this anymore. It's about us doing it with the community and the way that all of you showed up, even very last minute. It was incredible to see the innovation that happened with Trust Graph, with, the way that you guys ran your rounds was, just us doing that alone as Gitcoin. I think there was way more innovation that came through because of, the network community aspect of it. So kind of looking ahead right now, if any of you want to have, because we could probably sit here talking about GG24 for hours, but if anyone wants to have a look at more insights about GG24, you can scan the QR code up on the screen. There's a whole slide deck of way more in-depth information. Next steps is we are working very closely with Open Source Observer right now to measure the success of GG24, not just the OSS round, but across all domains. And hey, is the structure that we did, is it actually solving Ethereum's biggest problems? Then we'll go into a retrospective again and figure out, okay, this is working, people showed up, but how can we improve it for next time? So probably simplify things a bit in the future, I think. But yeah, it's a very exciting time. I am always very excited to do this work. So yeah, keep an eye out. We'll probably do a next round like early next year, but just keep an eye out for Gitcoin channels, and we'll shout it out there. So thank you again for all of you for showing up, and I am going to hand it over. Next.
Thank you all so much.